Hello, yeah, I'm back again. My name is Timitayo Akinlami. So, I want to talk about new beginnings and the uncertainty people face in new beginnings, which end up, leading to them being afraid. So, I'm talking about this because, I myself recently I just started, you know, going into new beginnings, putting myself out there more and what I'm doing now, creating things that I feel like can be valuable in the world and just, doing things that are normally before would be afraid to do or scared to do or would think that I wouldn't be good in doing this. But you know, those things, are uncertainties before that I used to have like, how will this go out? How will this go come out if I do this? How would it seem? How will people accept it? And and then that just made me realize that almost everything people do in this life, it comes from uncertainty. It starts from a level of uncertainty. Nobody goes into anything in this world being certain about it. And one thing I've learned from that is the moment I said, okay, I will just do this thing, regardless of how it comes out, or regardless of what, how people perceive it, how we go for it. And the moment I began to do that, I noticed that, I began to get more confident. I began to see it more clearly. Clearly, I began to understand, okay, yeah, these are things that I can actually do, but I didn't do them because I felt afraid of the uncertainty in them before. And I think one of the things that takes away the fear of uncertainty is doing it from a place of understanding that I'm doing this for myself and for God. If you begin to think that, obviously we know most of the things we do in this life is for the edification of the world, of the people, but starting it, you have to do it for yourself first and foremost and for God Almighty. And I think when you have that understanding, it becomes easier for you to just put yourself out there and put the things that are in your mind out there. So and I want to talk about a few points, which I have, prepared. And it says, one of them says, why new beginnings are scary. You know, there's a lot of things to unpack in this. Most people don't want to, for example, most people don't want to go into, leave the relationship, a toxic relationship that they are in, just because of uncertainty. Most people don't want to leave the job that they currently have because they feel if I leave this job, you know, there's no certainty for me out there to get another one. Or people starting new businesses or pursuing new dreams, like I am right now. I'm pursuing a new dream, which is involving me putting myself more out there. So uncertainty comes in different levels. Do you understand? So it's something. Sometimes people don't stay where they are because they love what they where they are, or because they are enjoying the current position that they are in. They stay because they are afraid of what comes next. The known pain that they know right now. That some people say that the angel I know is better than the devil I know is better than the angel I don't. And I find that statement very weird. Because if my thought is, if you don't do things or put yourself out there, or go with the things that are in your heart to do because of the fear of uncertainty, how do you hope to grow? Because uncertainty growth comes with uncertainty. If you really want to go, you don't see the whole picture from the beginning. You only see the beginning of where you're going. And as you move along, you begin to see clearer, you begin to understand better. And that uncertainty becomes, you begin to see, okay, yeah, this is actually what this is, and it becomes better for you along the line. So and well, bringing this into the biblical aspect, said the Bible doesn't ignore fear. The Bible never pretends that people weren't afraid. Abraham, for example, God told Abraham to leave his home. And the thing that makes it more interesting about Abraham is that God never told him, like, gave him the whole picture. God never gave him the whole picture of, this is the end of where you're going to. God just told him, leave, leave. And in this world that we are in right now, imagine you are in maybe in a land where, very beautiful place. Normally, you are comfortable, you are okay where you are at, and then let's say you are living in somewhere like Ikoyi. You are living in Ikoyi, very beautiful place, and then God tells you, I want you to leave Ikoyi and go to Ikorodu. Just go. And then you're like, Ikorodu. But God seeing it, he has seen that Ikorodu someday is going to be way more better, and there's more, goodness in the land that the Ikoyi are currently, freaked about at the moment. And he says, go. Most people will be like, no, make a leave Ikoyi for Ikorodu. But, on the long run, when you obey and just put yourself out there and just, damn the uncertainty, as time goes on, you begin to see that there's a lot of potential, in going to Ikorodu. So, that's just like an example I can give on that aspect, when it comes to, following, the instructions and just going with your certainty, as long as it is an instruction that comes from the Holy Spirit, and, so, and well, one thing I would say again is that, uncertainty and fear, these things, are real. And I understand that, I'll be talking about how you need to not let the fear, stop you from going for your dreams or doing things that you are supposed to do, that is in your heart, that you know that this thing is actually something that is, really good and I should actually pursue it. Most of the time, especially in the country that we live in, Nigeria, uncertainty is like the norm of the day because people are scared. There's a lot of uncertainty going on. The economy is not where we want it to be, so people have, they have the, right, I would say, to, to be concerned or have uncertainty because, uncertainty is in our face, people are, for example, when people are, afraid of failure, people, are afraid of embarrassment, people are afraid of disappointing people, losing money and making wrong decisions. These things are real fears, fear of uncertainty, because, for example, you want to invest in something, especially now, and, let's say you have like money and you want to invest in something, you invest in it, and, there's uncertainty in the country right now because of, the economic situation. You'll be afraid to, maybe you'll lose your money, or, you will make your profit back, and all of those things, they are very, very real. Do you understand? Like, I understand that they're real and there are things that, we need to put into consideration before we make decisions. But what I'm saying is that, when we let it, there will always be uncertainty, there will always be challenges, there will always be things that are not right in the world or, in our world currently. But if the people that have made changes, people that have made impacts in the world, if they add that mentality of, okay, yeah, there's uncertainty, so I need to, I won't do anything, I won't push the things that are in my heart to do, I won't go for that business idea, I won't go for that investment, I won't, leave that toxic relationship to be in a better one just because the one that I'm in right now is, maybe giving you money or is, making you feel comfortable in a way, but the person gives a lot of toxicity to your life, so a lot of things like that. If people that have made changes never, went forward with, doing the things that are in their heart, despite of the, hardship or the difficulties that they seem to face at that point in time. I will give an example. For example, I currently just released an app called Edify Worldwide. Before that app came to life, I went through a lot of challenges. That is one of the things that have really taught me a lot. About life and uncertainties and just pushing forward despite uncertainty or despite blocked roads. Because nothing good, like they say, comes easy, and you have to work hard, persevere, before things begin to come in place. Because I remember the first developer employed to do this for me, I paid him like a substantial amount of money, and that developer to today, I never got anything from him, like no back end, no front end, nothing. I had the choice of letting it go and just letting God take control, or going taking it all out, going to the court, or just causing more trouble and all of that. But I know there was this spirit in me that just felt, okay, don't worry, just keep going. And sometimes keep moving on doesn't necessarily mean you have to just do whatever it takes. Sometimes moving on is taking a step back, reevaluating, relaxing, understanding that, okay, yeah, how do I move forward from here? And letting God take control, praying about it and letting God take, just lead you in in the right path. So I had lost money and all of that, and I was just in a very bad place mentally, because where was I going to get the money for another developer, or where was I even going to get another developer that wouldn't do disappoint like the first one did? Because one thing I learned again is human resources is very, very important. You can have the money, but human resources, that's like one thing that I feel people really underrate. Getting the right people to work with, getting the right people around you, getting the right people to invest in you mentally, getting the right people to help you in going forward in the right path. Those things are very, very difficult. So but I just let it be. I relaxed, and not long, I found on Instagram, I would say, just a random person, that I'd never seen before, and I just, okay, let me just try. I just messaged this person. I had no money at that point in time, let me just message this person, and when I messaged him, the kind of conversation we had, this person made me understand that the money that I was thinking that I would spend, that is going to be so much. I began to understand that this is not, it's not even going to be quarter of how much I spent for the first developer, and this person delivered beyond my expectation. And I've learned so much from that person, moving forward. So and getting the money for this new person, it came in a way that I never imagined. I just things worked out because God, already destined it that it would work out. And that's one thing that I need to bring out of it, is the uncertainty in it. If I had every excuse, every right to be like, okay, yes, I'm not going to do this again, because the first time it happened, things were messed up, and I couldn't get it done. I was swindled and all of that. And then I just lay back and be like, I'm not doing this again, because I'm not certain of moving forward with it, or going to another person won't result in the first in what the first person did. And mind you, this second person doesn't even live in the same state that I live in. The person lives in another state entirely. you know and I just feel like, okay, let me just move forward with it. Let God just take control. So I let my fear of uncertainty go, and I just went for it. And, glory to God, today, the app is on the Play Store and App Store. So, that's what I'm saying, the fear of failure. I failed in the first aspect, but I didn't let that derail me from making decisions to move forward with the second person. And, it came out amazing. So there might be delays, there might be uncertainty, your uncertainty, your fears of uncertainty, the things like fear of failure and all those things, they are real. They can actually even happen, but that is the decision to move forward is what separates, those that are, the achievers, and those, that, just give up, and giving up is never an option if you're, someone that really wants to make a change in your life, in your family, in your community, in your generation. You just have to push forward and let that fear of uncertainty go. And what are the things, what helps people to move forward? For example, me, what helps me to move forward? It says, stop trying to see the whole journey. That is very important. Stop trying to see the whole journey. You can never see the whole journey. You might have the most beautiful idea. You see clearly, you see that this is where I want this to go, this is where I want it to be, this is how I want it to be. But the journey is a different ball game entirely, because there are things that come along the way in the journey to achieving that, end point. And I think there's something that people always say, that people that I look up to, my mentors, people that I look up to, my mentors, they always say that, the journey is far more important than the destination, because it is in the journey that you begin to build character. It is in the journey you begin to build better understanding. It is in the journey you begin to network and begin to have people that are, institutional to that end point, and sustaining that end point. Because it is one thing to get to the end point, it is another thing to sustain it, So it is the journey, the build up in the journey, the people you meet, the challenges you encounter and overcome is what builds you as a person, is what gives you depth, is what gives you substance in your understand, and is what equips you mentally, spiritually, physically, to be able to handle and sustain that destination that that you already have in your mind to get to, because you will get to that destination, but it just depends on the journey and how you are able to navigate it, with the help of God, because without God, you definitely cannot do anything. So yeah, and the next one says, focus on the next step. Focus on the next step, and if when you yeah, you start something new, just like a little born baby, when they give birth to the baby starts, from crawling, they crawl from crawling, they begin to stand and they stagger, and they fall and then they try again. That is, steps, taking it a step, step at a time, focusing on the next step. The first step is crawling. The crawling is not certain that you will walk, but you are crawling, you are moving, the little you can, starting from the lowest of the lowest, from there you begin to stand. You are building stamina, you stand, you're working on your back to be able to withstand your weight. From there, you begin to take steps. So everything in a journey, everything in whatever we want to do, there's a step by step to it, and we have to focus on that step by step, not focusing on what the end product or the end goal is. Focus on, when I do this, that's why you need goals. Understand, goals after goals after goals. So when you begin to achieve a goal, you move on to the next one, from the next one to the next one, and before you know, you have already worked on several goals that has gotten you to this point, and you're looking back and you're like, wow, amazing. So you need to just focus on the next step in front of you rather than focusing on 10 steps ahead of you. And it says, accept the mistakes are part of growth. I've made a lot of mistakes, even now that I'm, still in the baby point of my, startup and all of that. I've made mistakes, like the example I gave before, working with the wrong, a developer that, didn't deliver and all of that. I learned that, okay, yeah, a lot of things, I know moving forward from that, and it has made me to know better, to work with, for example, signing an agreement, working with contracts and all of that, and just backing yourself up legally so that you can have you can protect yourself from like dangers and all of that comes with the business. So it made me understand better. Do you understand? And I give glory to God for that. And remember that clarity often comes from action. Clarity comes from action. I'm someone that dreams a lot. I'm someone that usually have a vivid, sight of what where I'm going to and what I want to achieve. But I didn't get to understand what clarity really, means until I started taking action. You understand? Like, clarity, you might see the end goal, but clarity involves, the things that, the challenges you need to overcome, the things, because everything you want to do, there are things that are involved that are beyond that, end goal that you're seeing. There are things, that hurdles, there are challenges, there are systems in place, that, work in that particular, let's say industry or thing you want to do. So, the more you work on it, the more you take action, you begin to see clearly. You begin to, okay, this is how I do this. This is how I need to do this to get to this. This is how I need to do this to get this end goal. This is how I need to do. This is what I need to do to get to this place. That is clarity. And clarity can never be bought. It comes with experience. And experience comes with taking action. Experience comes with doing. Do you understand? So yeah, you need to take actions for you to be able to, see clearly and, overcome your fear of, overcome the fear of uncertainty and all of that. So what is one thing that you're postponing because you are afraid? What is that thing that you have been postponing? What is that thing that you feel like how am I going to do this? What are the things that I'm going to have to get to do this? How am I going to overcome this? How am I going to this thing that I'm dreaming about is so much. Is You just need to take action. And action, the best action you can ever take in the beginning, the best action, whatever you want to do, the best action is going to God in the place of prayer. That is one thing I've learned, in everything you want to do, go to God in a place of prayer. That is the first and most important step. You understand? Putting it in the feet of God and coming to God with it and putting it in the feet of God doesn't mean you will not face challenges along the way. No. As a matter of fact, those challenges are what are necessary to build you, to make you come into understanding, to make you come into alignment, to make you come into more clarity, in sustainability and longevity. Do you understand? So you need to have the understanding that God comes first. Go to Him in the place of prayer, pray more, and just take the most minute, whatever it is you can do at that point after prayer, whatever it is you can do at that point, just to make a move on what your goal is. Do it. There is never a beginning that is too small. You need to start from where you are, no matter what it is. Today, where the vision I have for this thing that I'm doing right now, talking to people and putting my camera here and talking and just letting out my understanding on things. I don't understand everything. As a matter of fact, I'm still learning. This is also a means of learning for me. But the vision that I have, the end goal that I have, is so much bigger than where I am at right now. It's so much more bigger. Like it blows my mind most times when I think about it. Because I see I see myself one day, hosting a show and just doing things in stadiums, in arenas that are bigger than I can imagine. But look at me today. I'm in my living room with a little camera and just speaking and just going. But tomorrow, another level for me again to get better. Next tomorrow, I can begin, to do things that are beyond my imagination, hosting people and, just putting a community together. But it starts from somewhere. And my own somewhere is this that I'm doing. What is your own somewhere? What is that point in your life, or in the thing that you want to do? What is that little thing that you can do just to, put your foot in the right direction? And when you begin to take a step at a time, And I promise you, when you do that with the help of God, you will get to wherever you want to get to, regardless of the uncertainty, regardless of the challenges, because challenges will come. Trust me, challenges will come, but challenges will never stop us, because in the face of challenges, we are kings. In the face of challenges, we are conquerors. In the face of challenges, we are victors, and victory will always be ours, because we are the sons and daughters of Christ. And thank you so much for listening to me, all the while. And I pray that, as we take the right direction or the right step in the direction that, God has put in our heart and that is always in our mind to do, I pray that God will help us. And, God bless you. And have a beautiful, beautiful day.